You know that moment when someone makes a joke about you in a group setting and everyone laughs and you laugh too, even though it lands a little heavier than you expected? Or when you're explaining something important and someone cuts you off mid-sentence and you just nod and let them continue? Or when a friend cancels on you for the third time and you instantly reply, "It's totally fine," even though you rearranged your whole day? On the surface, this looks like emotional maturity. It looks like confidence. It looks like you're secure enough not to sweat small things. But sometimes it's something else entirely, and that's where things start to get complicated. For a long time, many people assume that disrespect is simple. They think it happens because someone else is arrogant, rude, or insecure. And yes, sometimes that's true, but psychology has been quietly showing us that disrespect often grows in much more subtle ways. It doesn't usually begin with someone deciding you don't matter. It begins with patterns, small patterns, repeated signals, tiny moments that seem harmless on their own, but over time shape how others see you. Here's what makes this fascinating. Human beings are constantly scanning social environments for cues about status, boundaries, and emotional strength. This isn't something we consciously choose to do. It's automatic. Your brain does it, their brain does it, everyone's brain does it. We look for signals about how much space someone takes up, how much resistance they offer, how solid their presence feels. And most of these signals come from micro-behaviors: how quickly you laugh after being teased, how often you apologize, whether you finish your thoughts, whether your no sounds firm or uncertain. None of these behaviors are dramatic, but together they tell a story, and people respond to the story even if they can't explain why. Now, before you start blaming yourself, pause. There's nothing wrong with you. These habits didn't appear out of nowhere. They were learned. If you grew up in a home where tension escalated quickly, you probably became skilled at smoothing things over. If you were praised for being the easy one or the calm one, you likely leaned into that role because it felt safe and rewarded. If conflict made your stomach tighten, your brain found ways to avoid it. That's not weakness, that's adaptation. Your nervous system figured out what reduced stress, and it repeated it. Your brain's main job is safety. Not success, not dominance, safety. And social rejection, even mild rejection, registers in the brain almost like physical pain. So when there's even a hint of social friction, your body reacts. A small spike of discomfort, a tightness in your chest, a flutter of anxiety. The fastest way to make that feeling disappear is to smooth it over. Smile, agree, make it lighter. And when you do that, the tension dissolves. Relief. Your brain learns this works. But here's the part most people miss. When you consistently remove friction, you also remove signals of boundary. And boundaries are one of the primary ways humans measure respect. This is where it gets interesting. Behavioral psychology shows that when a behavior meets no resistance, it tends to increase. If someone interrupts you and there's no pushback, even subtle pushback, they're slightly more likely to do it again. If someone teases you and it consistently gets a laugh, that teasing becomes part of the dynamic. It doesn't mean they're consciously thinking, "I don't respect this person." It means the interaction has found a groove, and grooves deepen with repetition. There's a reason this feels confusing emotionally. You're being kind, you're being flexible, you're being understanding. These are good traits, but kindness without clarity can slowly blur your outline in other people's minds. They still like you, they might even appreciate you, but appreciation and respect are not identical. Social research consistently shows that likability and perceived authority don't always move together. Someone can enjoy your presence while unconsciously ranking you lower in the social hierarchy. That hierarchy isn't always about money or status, it's about psychological weight. And psychological weight often comes from steadiness, not loudness. Think about someone you know who rarely raises their voice, rarely argues, but when they speak, people listen. They don't rush, they don't over-explain, they don't laugh off every jab. There's a quiet solidity there. That solidity communicates something powerful. I take myself seriously. And when someone takes themselves seriously, others tend to follow. Now, here's something deeper. Sometimes the root of this dynamic isn't just about conflict avoidance, it's about identity. Psychologists use the term self-concept clarity to describe how stable and defined your sense of self feels internally. When self-concept is strong, you don't need constant feedback to know where you stand. When it's shaky, even slightly, you might lean more heavily on external validation. Approval feels stabilizing, so you avoid behaviors that might threaten it. You avoid saying, "That didn't sit right with me." You avoid saying, "Hold on, I wasn't finished." You avoid letting a silence linger after a comment that stung. Instead, you move the moment along. You rescue the vibe. You protect the group's comfort. But here's the quiet cost. Every time you override your internal reaction to preserve external harmony, you teach both yourself and others that your discomfort is negotiable. Over time, this doesn't just affect how others see you, it affects how you feel about yourself. You start noticing a gap, a subtle disconnect between what you feel and what you express, and that gap can create resentment. Not loud resentment, but quiet heaviness, a sense that something is off. This is where it gets even more nuanced. Many people who experience subtle disrespect are actually highly empathetic. They can sense mood shifts instantly. They can read facial expressions, tone changes, group energy. That sensitivity is a strength, but when empathy is paired with self-suppression, it turns into over-accommodation. You end up managing everyone else's feelings while minimizing your own. And humans, consciously or not, respond to that imbalance. Here's another layer researchers often highlight. Social roles solidify through repetition. If you consistently show up as the agreeable one, the patient one, the one who doesn't mind, people adjust their expectations around that version of you. It becomes the role you occupy. Changing that role later can feel uncomfortable, not just for you, but for others, because it disrupts the pattern they've grown used to. And that's why even small shifts can feel dramatic internally. Pausing instead of laughing, finishing your thought instead of yielding, letting a statement hang instead of softening it. These are tiny behaviors, but socially they signal increased self-alignment. What's powerful is that you don't have to become aggressive to shift dynamics. Research on assertiveness consistently shows that calm, steady boundary signals increase perceived competence and respect more than either passivity or aggression. It's not about volume, it's about congruence, your outer behavior matching your inner state. There's also something important to acknowledge here. Sometimes the fear of losing approval keeps the pattern alive. If your identity is wrapped up in being easygoing or the chill one, any deviation from that can feel like a risk. Who are you if you're not the smooth one? Will people still like you if you stop absorbing everything? That fear makes sense. Belonging is one of our deepest needs. But respect often grows in the space where belonging and self-alignment overlap. When you stop abandoning yourself to maintain connection, something subtle shifts in the energy. And here's the quiet truth. Sometimes the feeling of being disrespected isn't just about how others treat you. It's about how often you dismiss your own internal signals. When you repeatedly tell yourself, "It's not a big deal," when it is, you shrink your emotional footprint, and people, even unintentionally, step into that space. None of this means you caused someone else's poor behavior, and it doesn't mean you deserve it. It simply means social dynamics are shaped by patterns, and patterns can change when awareness enters the picture. If you've been feeling that subtle drop in how seriously people take you, you're not imagining it, and you're not broken. You may have simply learned at some point in your life that being smaller kept you safer. That strategy probably worked. It may have protected you. It may have preserved relationships. It may have reduced chaos. But survival strategies don't always translate cleanly into adult social spaces. Awareness alone begins shifting things. You don't have to stage confrontations. You don't have to transform your personality. Even noticing when you automatically laugh or apologize is a form of recalibration, because awareness creates choice, and choice slowly reshapes patterns. Respect doesn't usually appear after a dramatic speech. It grows when your external signals align with your internal truth, when your reactions are honest, even in subtle ways, when your presence feels defined, not blurred. So if any of this resonates, you're not alone in it. Many people move through the world like this, carrying old scripts that once kept them safe. There's nothing shameful about that. There's something very human about it. If this conversation helped you see something about yourself more clearly, you can subscribe and stay for more of these deeper dives into everyday psychology. And if you'd like to support the channel, joining as a member genuinely helps keep these discussions going. But more importantly, just sit with this idea for a moment. Respect doesn't start with becoming harder. It doesn't start with dominating rooms. It starts with clarity, with noticing when you felt something,